Community is more than where you live. It's the people in it.
I help equip Baton Rouge communities with resources that facilitate change.
Who go above and beyond to help it thrive.
I'm educating children in the Bronx on their community history.
During Black History Month, AARP recognizes leaders who uplift communities.
I'm helping the community take their health more seriously.
AARP believes when we unite for the greater good, we thrive together.
Hey folks, drummer Thomas Wendt here, welcoming you back to a brand new episode of The Vinyl Report. Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, it is a total pleasure to be with you. And today, we've got yet another great album that we're going to be focusing in on. This time, it's going to feature the great Pittsburgh-born multi-percussion master, Kenny Clarke. Kenny Clarke meets the Detroit Jazzmen on the Savoy label, recorded in April and May of 1956, just a couple of months before Kenny Clarke would move to Europe, where he would spend pretty much the rest of his life until he died in 1985. That's the record we're going to be checking out today, and I'm very, very honored to welcome another special guest to the program. Today, we are honored to welcome the one and only Dr. James T. Johnson, Jr. Thank you for coming in, Doc.
It's a privilege to be here. It's a privilege to be here.
Wonderful. We're going to get to more with Dr. J and Kenny Clarke right after this. You are checking out The Vinyl Report.
Hi, I'm jazz drummer Thomas Wendt. On behalf of the August Wilson African American Cultural Center, it's my pleasure to present The Vinyl Report. We'll explore the records of some of Pittsburgh's most influential jazz artists of all time. For some, vinyl is now being rediscovered, but for me, it never went away. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Vinyl Report.
All right, so today we're going to be checking out Kenny Clarke meets the Detroit Jazzmen on the Savoy label. And Doc, you have a very, very direct connection with the great Kenny Clarke, because even though I said he did move to Paris, he lived outside of Paris, he did come back to Pittsburgh in the late 70s to teach for a time at the University of Pittsburgh. And that's where you come into the picture, right?
Yeah, that would be 1979, I believe. And it was timely because I had just lost my father to an assassination. My father who walked with King, and the reason that black people got jobs in North Louisiana was because of my father. So him being there, he was pretty much a father image before that happened, but he happened to be living with my wife and I when it happened, and that was a great help to me.
Wow, I didn't realize.
Because he immediately became that father image. He was already a father image to my advisor over at the University of Pittsburgh, Dr. Nathan Davis. So that was really timely. And he lived with my wife and I on Monticello Street. And the first thing that really comes to my mind is because of who Kenny Clarke was, father of modern jazz drumming, I'll just say that. Given the title because of the transferring the beat from the hi-hat to the ride, and then dropping what we call musical bombs. And he did it to help musicians keep time because the music they were playing was really fast. Of course, I would consider him personally to be one of the founders of the bebop period. But his knowledge of life went far beyond music. Being a musician on the world stage, you get a chance to meet a lot of people. And what struck me the most is when he would play for Hitler's generals. Now everybody knows that Hitler hated black people, there's no question about that. But a lot of times he would play for those parties, and this was I believe pre-World War II, what we call World War II. And they would get to drinking, and they would just start spilling their guts about what Hitler was planning to do, and this kind of thing. And one of the things that came out of that particular conversation was that Hitler really wanted to get to Great Britain. but America was in the way. So that's how this whole, reason this whole world was. But he would talk so much stuff about life. My house on Monticello Street just became a church place for people to come and listen. Musicians would come, and I can just name some of them. Dr. Nelson Harrison, who we all know, Joe Harris, who we talked about, and then many other the young people, Vince Genova, Kenny Fisher.
We should probably mention that the reason he came back to Pittsburgh was to take Dr. Davis's place.
Right. When he went out to California, Nathan Davis and Tomorrow, I think the company was Tomorrow, and he had an office out there. I think it was on Sunset Boulevard. And I don't know if he and Don Bird, who was also like a big brother to him, were competing or not. But he didn't tell Don Bird. And according to Nathan, Don Bird was driving down Sunset Boulevard, and he saw Nathan Davis and Tomorrow, and he turned around and then broke laws, almost caused a car wreck. Coming back and find out what that was about. But my piano was in the dining room. Those houses in Homewood, I think when you walked in, you had the steps going up. You got a basement going down. Then you had your living room to the right. Then you had the dining room, and then you had the kitchen. But most of those houses are made the same way. And in the dining room, my piano there, and he could play the piano as well, because when we would play, he would come over and voice chords the way he wanted me to play those chords. But he would turn around at the piano bench, and there would actually be musicians sitting on the floor, listening to this man talk like a prophet.
Wow, man.
And I proudly tell people, and you have to interrupt me because I can just talk on and on.
I tell you what. Why don't we hear the first tune of the record?
Okay.
And then we'll pick up the story then. Okay.
Okay.
The first tune that we're going to check out from this record is Duke Ellington's now classic composition, Cottontail. Now I should mention, this record features the great Pepper Adams on baritone saxophone, guitarist Kenny Burrell, pianist Tommy Flanagan, bassist Paul Chambers, who was actually born in Pittsburgh but grew up in Detroit, and of course the great Kenny Clarke on drums. So here's Cottontail. Check this out. All right, that was Cottontail by Duke Ellington. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, Doc, you were talking about Kenny Clarke living with you while he was here teaching at the University of Pittsburgh, and the fact that people would come to the house just to listen to him talk.
Right. My house became Grand Central Station for musicians. I learned more, and this is not a put down for any of the education I received at the University of Pittsburgh or Grambling State University, where I went to undergrad. I learned more when he lived with me for those 6 months than I had my entire life. I learned more about life. And he would turn around and he would sit on the piano stool and just start talking. And people on the couch, and when I saw Joe Harris get quiet, anybody who knows Joe Harris knows that that's major. Kenny Clarke was spitting out some serious knowledge about life, communism, Africanism, the whole thing. So it's just not limited to music. And I got a chance to meet his, I want to say second wife, Rosemary.
Yes, I think that's
And she came to be with us for a while. So it was just really learning experience. He talked about, going to Europe, and of course, I already knew about this whole thing about the modern jazz quartet.
Oh, yeah.
He and Dizzy Gillespie, but they got he and John Lewis, they got the organ over the music, which is one of the reasons he left.
Yeah.
He didn't want the laid back, cool sound. He wanted to be, and as you know, he's a fiery drummer.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And we talked about, and then I asked him a question one night. I said, because he told me I could ask him in front of anyone. I asked him, why you won't play the bossa nova?
Oh, yeah.
And it was not that he was not playing the bossa, he was playing a African version of the bossa nova. And my wife, who was singing with the group, said it made her sing better.
Yeah.
And she was singing The Girl from Ipanema. Now that group had Hideo Shimada on bass, I believe. I was on the piano, Jothan Callums was on the trumpet, Kenny Fisher was on tenor sax, and Nelson Harrison was on trombone.
Sounds of Togetherness. Is that what
Yeah,
the group was
well, when Kenny Clarke was leading the band, it was Kenny Clarke.
Oh,
the band
gotcha.
at the Crawford Grill.
Okay.
I think we were there the entire time he was living with me.
Wow.
Well, we were there for 6 weeks, I don't put it that way. But Sounds of Togetherness, we kept the group together under the name of Jothan Collins, Sounds of Togetherness.
Oh, okay.
Which he was one of the directors of the Sun Ra band after Sun Ra's death.
Yes.
Wow. But when we talk about music and the origins of the bossa nova, of course, Stan gets a lot of the credit, for commercial reasons. But the first time we have Latin and jazz that I know of was Chano Pozo with Dizzy Gillespie. But the way I looked at it was that the condom blade by ear. So when samba came around, it was a commercialization of condom blade, and then bossa nova came around, it was a commercialization of the samba. That's how the whole land. So what Kenny was doing was playing between a condom blade samba. Then that I'm gonna use the word funky.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm just gonna go ahead and use that word, funky.
You can use it. That's all right.
And it was just different, but it was just something playing where you felt lifted.
It's funny you use that term. That's exactly what Kenny Washington calls it when Kluke would play with a band. He would give it a lift.
Yes.
And speaking of which, the next tune that we're going to check out is a great example of that. The next tune we're going to hear from this record is by Kenny Burrell. This is called Your Host. Give this one a listen. So that was Your Host, written by guitarist Kenny Burrell, one of my favorite tunes on this record for sure. So, Doc, you were talking about playing.
Can I interrupt you? Before we go into this, there are two things I want to say about Kenny before I forget.
Please.
You know, being 72, well, my mind is not.
That's all right. That's okay.
There are two presents he gave me. One was a copy of the Francis Bolden Clarke Big Band, which you could not buy in the United States for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. It was an LP. Mm-hmm. And the other thing was called the Jazz. It was not called a Jazz Bible. I'll call it authored by Arthur Taylor.
Oh, Notes and Tones. The book notes and stuff?
Yeah, it was a brown book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to ask you how you got it, because that book was hard to get. I don't think it was published in the United States either. I could be wrong.
It has been, but I'm not sure if it was originally. But it has since been published, so you can get it.
This was back in 1979.
It might not have been available in this country.
Right,
either.
because there was so much information in there about the music industry and how it was treating black people and this kind of thing. And I understood they tried to hide it. There's just certain things that, the publishers here in America were just not going to look at.
Sure.
And that was one of them. But now go ahead and you can ask your question.
Well, no, I was just going to ask you more about playing with Kenny Clarke here in Pittsburgh, because you guys had sort of a standing gig at the Crawford Grill.
Right.
Right? Now, would that have been like every weekend you guys were there, or?
Every weekend.
Yeah.
Fridays and Saturdays.
Okay.
And the place would be packed. I understand they used the word, if memory serves, and I'm going back now, a revival of jazz, a revival of the Crawford Grill Club. I mean, it was something, but the word revival was in there. And I remember that first night, it was standing room only, and then some of the older cats said, this feels like, the old days and things like that.
Wow.
That was special to me. That and another special moment to me, because I played with a lot of big names, but it was playing with Kenny Clarke and sitting on the Count Basie bench. Those were two things that personally lifted my spirit after the death of Basie, and that's because of Nelson Harrison introducing me to Thad Jones, who was at that time directing the band. But Kenny Clarke, a Klukelmop, what you would call it, could really swing, and he loved swinging piano players. I mean, it's one thing to be able to play, I'm not going to call any names because some people sat in with him of note.
I got you.
And they were not swinging. You know that song, It Don't Mean a Thing If You Ain't Got That Swing?
Yeah.
He heard up and got them off the piano.
Wow.
And I thought I was going to be getting a break. I was going to order me a meal, chicken dinner or something. But he just loved that foot pattern swing, man. That
Well, he was one of the great architects of it,
Right.
Beautiful.
And it didn't miss a beat. Every night after the gigs, he took my wife and I directly to a place called the House of Sauce barbecue place, right there near the corner of Neville and Center.
Yep.
And we would stand there and wait, and we would go home eating barbecue at 1 and 2 and 3 in the morning. I knew we were doing wrong. I knew it was a sin of the body. But that barbecue was so good, but he never let us pay for it.
Wow.
Right.
Wow, man. That's
and when my father was assassinated, and he appreciated the fact, I went back to Louisiana and I brought a whole carload of suits, 3-piece suits, and my dad was known as one of the best dressers in North Louisiana. And then he started wearing my father's suits.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Man, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, we're gonna check out some more music. This time, we're going to hear a tune from Kenny Clarke meets the Detroit Jazzmen. This tune was actually written by the great bass master Oscar Pettiford, and this is his classic composition, Trickritism. Check this one out. All right, so that was Trickritism, written by the great bassist Oscar Pettiford. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Doc, you know, as you said, Kenny Clarke was a very worldly person, somebody who had a great understanding of the world in general. I'm interested to ask you, you know, I've heard from people, I never had the honor of meeting him, but I've heard that he was very, very much aware of you know, the situation here in this country with the racial apartheid and him moving to Paris. Did he talk to you about you know, how he felt about sort of the future of this country and our society back then?
Well, he knew not only about this country but the world, period.
Sure.
Kenny Clarke and another musician that I worked with for 2 years, Don Bird, the trumpet player, they were in some instances blackballed. Blackballed because they try to teach young musicians how to own their own music, how to walk with dignity, and because they exposed all of the secrets that other people who were in control of the music, how they would act and do. So they taught musicians how to fight against that type of thing. And when I mentioned Don, we're not talking about Don Bird, but the reason Herbie Hancock owns everything he plays is because of Don Bird. Wow. He was a big brother not only to Nathan Davis but also Herbie Hancock. But yeah, Kenny Clarke was considered a rebel.
Yeah.
the music, the whole period itself was considered a rebellious period. The whole thing about the music drastically changing, the dress code that they had, which each piece of clothing had a different meaning. The fact that they were very cliquish. The whole thing, the things that they would do, like turning their backs on the audience, not acknowledging sometimes applause. They didn't want to be known as entertainers. They wanted to be known as artists. And he was a part of that. And of course, he led the house band at Minton's Playhouse. I think that was Nick Fitton on bass, Guy on trumpet.
Joe Guy, yeah.
Joe Guy on trumpet.
Sometimes Monk on piano.
Monk, Thelonious Monk.
Kenny Kersey was the other pianist.
So that's just a lot of history there. And when he would take his breaks at the Crawford Grill, sometimes I get worried because I thought they were a little bit extra long, and the club owner, I think his name was Buzzy. Would be giving him the eye, But Buzzy knew better than not to say anything to the great Ken, because he took breaks a little bit longer than normal. But Kenny Clarke himself wrapped up, a philosopher, musician. He taught rhythm at the Paris Conservatory of Music. So that people, if you studied with Kenny Clarke and you studied rhythm, then you were considered a success when you went to the Paris Conservatory of Music.
Sure.
And I'm talking the things off of the top of my head that I can remember. About Klug, both reading, and he's the one that personally told me. I know people read it, said it, man, that Louis Armstrong fired him for doing that ride simple. But he told me that personally, so it was no doubt.
Wow.
And of course, anybody who knows Louis Armstrong, he spoke out against bebop, was not ready for it, did not realize his West End blues condenser was setting the stage for bop.
That's right.
But all that history, and we would learn that history in between walking from the music building over to it. And he would talk to all of the teaching assistants.
Wow, yeah.
Between David Lawrence Hall and the music building, and then of course at home at the kitchen table.
Beautiful, man. Those are incredible memories, man.
Oh yeah.
That's He's one person I really wish I could have met and just spent just a little bit of time with, because he's one of my favorite drummers and somebody who's a constant inspiration for me, So. Yeah, man. We've got one more tune to get to. This last tune that we're going to check out from Kenny Clarke meets the Detroit Jazzmen is a tune written by the baritone saxophonist Pepper Adams. This is called Apatha. Hope you enjoy this one. Check this out. All right, I hope you guys have enjoyed this music half as much as I have. This is one of my favorite records of all time. I never get tired of listening to it. Now, if you've enjoyed this one, Kenny Clarke Meets the Detroit Jazzmen, here's another record from that same era that you might like as well. This is Presenting Cannonball Adderley, also on the Savoy record label, recorded in 1955, right after Cannonball made a big splash when he arrived in New York City. Kenny Clarke is also featured on that album as well, along with Paul Chambers, Hank Jones on piano, and Cannonball's brother, Nat Adderley, on cornet. Doc, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your incredible insight and knowledge about Kenny Clarke. And
Thank you, and I just want to say something as a final word. I want to commend you on your ministry. I'm calling it a ministry.
Thank you, man.
Your thoroughness in education and the knowledge of history.
Thanks, man.
You know more jazz history than a lot of college professors that teach history that I know. I'm not just saying this because I know you personally, but it's a true story. And of course, your musicianship.
Thank you.
And then being the young age that you are, I just want to publicly commend you.
Thank you very much, man.
For that work.
Thank you, man. Well, I've had some great inspiration and examples, you know.
Okay, all right.
So I'm just trying to follow, you know.
All right. Okay.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of The Vinyl Report. We will see you next time. In the meantime, stay safe, and as always, stay close to the music. This has been The Vinyl Report.